Hello and welcome to Civil Talks. Today we're going to learn about the regulating structures in a hydropower project. So let's first study about the intake. So we all know, we are well known to the fact that an intake is a hydraulic structure and it is located at headworks. What is the main purpose of the intake is to divert the desired amount of water to the canals or tunnels or pipes for power generation in hydropower projects, or we can use intake for other required purposes as well. Since we are dealing with hydropower engineering, we'll stick to the subject. So an intake has an opening or a pipe or for pressure flow. So this is the definition of intake. So let's learn what are the requirements of an intake. The first one is the safe release of fluids. That means at the time of flood, the intake should be capable in order to release the flood water. The second point is low loss in trances of the power flow. That means at the time of the diversion, there should be minimum losses of entrance. So an intake is provided with the various kinds of entrances, for example surface, bell mouth and other, and chose accordingly in order to prevent the losses of entrance. The third one is preventing bed load intrusion into the canal. That means the river bed load should not be entered through the intake into the canal, is one of the requirements of an intake. Let's look at the fourth one, deflecting and flushing of bed load accumulated in front of the weir. As we all know, weir is a retaining structure or it is a diversion structure. So the main requirement of an intake is to deflect and flush the bed load which has been accumulated in front of the weir. And last one is an intake has to protect the canal from floating debris and ice, if any, carried by the water course. That means there should be made a provision so that the floating debris as well as other unwanted materials should not enter into the intake. That's why a trash rack is provided. Later on we will study about the trash rack in our courses. So now let's talk about the location of intake. Location of intake, yeah. So where an intake should be constructed, it should be well examined. The location of an intake must be chosen in such a way that it diverts the required quantity of flow with minimum sediment flow into the intake. That means we have already studied this part in the requirements of an intake. The location of an intake should be there so that it diverts the required quantity of flow which is required for the power generation, and it should carry the minimum sediment into the intake. No sediment intrusion is nearly impossible. That's why an intake should be located in such a place that there is the minimum sediment intrusion into the intake, into the canal. Okay. So here you can see in the second point, the best location for the intake is the outer bank to avoid the bed load. In the figure we can see that in the outer bank the sediment deposit is almost none. That means in each and every cases the sediment will deposit into the in the inner bank rather than being deposited in the outer bank. That's why an intake should be located to the outer bank in order to avoid the bed load. You can see very well in this picture, and you can see the point number 3. The structure should be aligned to produce a suitable curvature of flow into the intake, and a diversion angle of around 30 to 45 degrees is usually recommended to produce the curvature of flow. This point is trying to say that the alignment, the diversion angle of the intake should be between 30 to 45 degree in order to produce the curvature of flow. And the 4th point is the upstream of intake should be well established with stable banks. The erosion of a river, the river erosion is very much prominent in the zone where retaining structures are constructed. That's why the upstream of intake should be well established with stable banks, so that no erosion will take place, no significant erosion will take place, and there will less intrusion of sediment into the intake. Now let's move on to the topic, what are the major types of intakes in hydropower project. Okay, there are basically 4 types of intake in hydropower project, namely side intake, frontal intake, drop or trench intake, and the dam intake. Let's get started with the first one, which is the side intake. Okay, it's the side intake. So why side intake, and what are the attributes of side intake in a hydropower project? So first one, it is suitable for most river categories. Okay, since most of the river follows the meandering path, side intake is very much suitable for that kind of categories as well. It is simple, less expensive, easy to build and maintain. The longitudinal axis is usually aligned perpendicular to the axis of the river. That means if the axis of river is this, that means the side intake is usually aligned almost perpendicular to the alignment of the river. The third point is it is placed immediately upstream of the divergent structure. That means this is the divergent structure. Here we have we can see it is a weir, and it in immediately upstream we can see there is the intake, which is the side intake. Now let's discuss about the frontal intake. Second one, this is the second type of intake in hydropower project. This is the frontal intake. Side intake is aligned almost perpendicular to the river alignment, and in the frontal intake the longitudinal axis of the intake is generally aligned parallel to the axis of river. That means if the river is flowing in this direction, the frontal intake will also divert the water in this direction. Okay, the second point is it is suitable for relatively clean water carrying wide rivers. That means a river is carrying clean water and it is wide enough. That means it is suitable to construct the frontal intake in those kind of river. Frontal intake is applicable where majority of sediment carried is bed load. That means if there is bed load, there is a provision to take account of the bed load as well. So frontal intake is suitable in this case. You can see a figure. This is the retaining structure, this is the undersluice, and this is the intake, where it is almost aligned parallel to the longitudinal axis of the river. This is the frontal intake. If the bed load, majority of the sediment carried by the river is the bed load, there is a provision as well in order to flush the bed sediment and take the clean water into the canal by the frontal intake. So now let's jump into the another type of intake, which is drop or trench intake. Drop or trench intake is usually constructed in very steep rivers with a gradient of at least 1:10 that carries boulders or rocks. Okay, so it is very rarely used in hydropower project. It is simple structure which is built for capturing water from the bed of the river and drops it directly into the headrace. That means it is constructed under the water and it drops the water into its intake and directly diverts into the headrace, canal or pipe. It consists of a trench-shaped intake gallery constructed in the bed to entrap the river flow. I have already discussed that. Another point is a sediment trap trench. A sediment trap trench may be provided upstream of the intake gallery to trap the bed sediments. However, there are less sediments in very steep rivers and more boulders and rocks. We can find it very often. A trash rack shall be provided over the intake. After yes, there is a trash rack over the intake, often at the same level as riverbed. That means it helps to take account the intrusion of the rocks and boulders into the headrace. So trash rack is provided just immediately over the trench or bottom intake. Here you can see the picture. Okay, there is a gravel trap, there is the intake gallery where this is the trash rack. You can see a trash rack, and this helps to trap the rock and boulder so that they will not get intruded into the canal. And you can see the cross section of the bottom intake. You can see it by pausing the video. And let's talk about the fourth and final kind of intake that are mostly used in hydropower project, which is known as dam intake. Okay, you can see here a dam is constructed in a narrow gauge and the water collected and forms a reservoir, and wherein a pipe is embedded into the dam body where the water is taken into the powerhouse for power generation. So what are the attributes of dam intake? It is provided in the dam body of the dam and is used in high head hydroelectric plant. Okay, penstock or tunnel is embedded in the dam body at required level. It consists of trash rack structure, bell mouth entrances, control gate, etc. You can see the cross section of the dam here. This is the trash rack. Here you can see the bell mouth entrances. This is the penstock or tunnel, so that the water can be diverted into the powerhouse for power generation. So that's all for today. Today we studied about what is intake, its requirements, where should it be located, and what are the types. So yeah, thank you for watching the video, and please do subscribe, and yeah, it will motivate me to create more videos on hydropower engineering. Thank you so much.